Class A, we need to talk about verbs with irregular stems in the preterite. First, let me start by refreshing your memory on what the stem of a verb is. For example, you do not have to write this part down. This is just for an example. The stem of a verb is whatever is left after you take off the infinitive ending. So the stem of nadar, which means to swim, is nad. The stem of comer, which means to eat, is com. And you guys know that then usually you would just take the stem and put it into all 6 boxes if you're conjugating the verb and it's not a stem change or anything, and then add the appropriate endings that you need to add. And in the preterite, e, aste, o, amos, estes, aron, or ir verbs, I would take the stem of the verb, put it into all 6 boxes before adding e, iste, io, imos, istes, ieron. You already know that only ir verbs are stem changers in the preterite, and now we're going to talk about verbs that don't even follow the rule of having an appropriate stem. I call these verbs your teacups, which might sound a little bit crazy and you guys might not like my tricks, but it's because eventually if you were to learn all of the verbs that have an irregular stem, it would be teacups. Again, I know that there's not a U here and it's 2 P's. How very quaint thud. Again, if you don't like it, we can talk about it later, but it's my best systematic way of grouping these verbs together where they belong and their stems in the preterite. So, what's in gray? Go ahead and write it down, but that's not what we're focused on. The ones that are in green are the ones that we are focused on for the rest of the trimester. So, what is the verb that starts with the letter T? Can you think of any verbs that you know that it might be? If you said tener, you are right. Tener in the preterite does not have the stem that you think that it should. What should the stem of tener be? What is the stem of tener? It's ten. But when we conjugate it in the preterite, we use this stem. Tuv. Can you think of an E verb that this might be for? If you said estar, you are correct. The stem of a star should be est, but for no good reason, it's totally irregular, and it is estuv. I hope you guys can see why I grouped these 2 verbs together. They're a part of the UV group. Alright, let's move on to, we're not learning any cups this trimester. Let's move on to the H. What verb do you think we know that might have an irregular stem in the preterite that starts with the letter H? It is hacer. What is the stem of hacer in the preterite? It is is. Uh-oh, I've got stars here. There must be something special about it. And in the thud, we have the letter D. What verb do you think this might be? If you said desir, you're right. The stem of desir should be des, but it's not. In the preterite, it is dich. Uh-oh, there's something special about this one too, so we'll have to make sure we talk about that as well. So we've got an ER verb, an AR verb, an ER verb, and an IR verb. And all of these verbs are what I consider teacups or verbs with irregular stems. What endings do they take? Does a star still take AR endings? Like easteo, amos, estes, aron? Do tener, en hacer, en decir still take e, iste, io, imos, istes, ieron? No, they don't, because some teacups are ER verbs and some teacups are AR verbs and IR verbs. They take a combination of the 2. What I'm about to show you here are your endings for teacups. Your endings for teacups have the same endings as AR verbs, as the yo and the he, she, but no accents. So A and O. And then the other endings come from the ER-IR chart. So of course they'll all start with the letter I. Iste, imos, istes, ieron. I should get a bigger eraser to erase all this. Here we go. Now we've got it. Okay, so these are your teacup endings. If you've already written down your AR chart, that's fine, we'll label them. These are your AR endings. These are your teacup endings. It's hard to write with a mouse, so please excuse my handwriting. Yours should be neater, and I'm going to spell cups without a U, because that's how they're spelled here. And these are your ER or IR endings. But what endings do teacups take? They take these. Okay, so now your notes should look like this page as of right now. But now I'm going to ask that you add a little bit more. I'm going to ask that underneath this, you guys give me full charts for these 1, 2, 3, 4 verbs in the preterite. So I'm going to actually do tenere with you. I cannot go below this space, so I'm just going to clear what I have here. And I'm going to, so you should have all this, and now I'm going to erase this real quick and show you how tenere conjugates in the preterite. So you want to put this chart for tenere below all of this stuff here. Alright, so if I was to conjugate tenere in the preterite, I need to take its stem. Instead of 10, I'm going to take tuv because that's its stem in the preterite. And I'm just going to put tuv in front of the endings for teacups in all 6 boxes. I didn't leave myself enough room to squeeze this in, make yours neater than mine. So when I conjugate tenere in the preterite to say I had, you had, he or she had, I get tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvisteis, tuvieron. So I've done tenere with you. Of course, above it you need to write tenere to have because you don't want your charts to be topless. And then I need you guys to make a chart for a star, hacer, and decir. Yes, hacer will be special. Maybe you can figure out where, and decir will be special, and we'll talk about them in class. So if you want to do these in pencil so you can easily change them, please do. But these are your teacups, or you could call them by their more boring name, verbs with irregular stems. And if you have questions, bring them with you to class. If you don't understand it yet, that's fine. We'll talk.